Dude, you are getting well. Dude, welcome to season 3 of Dude, You're Getting Well. I can't believe it. I just want to stop and say thank you to every single person who has listened, who has made a difference, who has clicked subscribe, so that is actually the thing that keeps us going. Like when we know you're listening, when you're subscribing, when you're there, that feeds this message. So if you like what you're hearing, that's the best way. Another way is just to share it with someone in your life, and another way is to tag someone in your life. But really, we speak things into existence. Our thoughts create our words, create our world, create our reality. So share this with the people you love so that they know what matters to you. And if you see solution, if you hear magic, the more you talk about it, the bigger it becomes, right? We can expound on that. So with magic, with love, with connection, I want to say thank you and welcome to our very special guest, Janine Ayana Watkins. Hey, Janine.
What up, Ben Curtis? Thank you so much for having this space and also continue to expand it. Like you're saying, those rippling words really do create new worlds.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for whatever it took for you to be here and creating the time with us. So we're gonna dive right in. For anyone who's listening, who's ready to learn about wealth, about money mindset, about energetic alignment, so that you can receive. We'll talk about what money is or isn't. And we're gonna hear from this beautiful soul, who I call sort of a I said like intuitive wealth specialist, but how might you define yourself? I mean, okay, we don't need to put it in a box, but Janine, when you talk about what you do and this purpose to give people access to financial freedom, how do you like to talk about it?
Yeah.
Or yourself? Like, what might we call you?
Well, and I love that because I feel like titles are less important than the energy and the way you leave people. And so, in all the areas that Janine has expanded herself into, now talking about her in the third person, I feel like a lot of it's energetically always been the same. My background's actually civil engineering. I graduated at Cal Poly Pomona out in California. I worked on the light rail project in LA. I then got transferred, to LaGuardia out in New York City to build the airport. And so I feel like energetically, I've always been someone who looks at projects and they project it till it's finished. And more than just projects, I stepped away from that in 2018. I rebranded, I became an entrepreneur. And after 2020, I was told I was no longer essential. I feel like that's really what drove my new title, because I was finding more than what it meant to be essential. People were really taking that as I have no value, and so I don't get to work. And one, I've also dismantled even the word work. And so my biggest title for myself is I'm a financial solution specialist, because I get to rework the way people see their worlds. And so instead of now projecting out projects, I project out people. It's a lot more enthusiastic when you get to say well done to a person than a concrete slab. And so that's my title. And I feel like a lot of it comes again to the nature that I've always been someone who loves to see the future, and I get excited to take every step. And now I don't just do it by myself. I do it with my team, I do it with my clients, and I do it with people who are just curious of what it looks like to create a vision and then fully live into it. That's not a word, but yeah.
Yes. You're speaking, you're putting down some magic here, for sure. We just had this great conversation. Janine connected me with a fellow soul. She always does. Marwan, I'll speak his name here. And I was talking about like weirdness, and I love being weird, by the way. I remind my wife that the weirder she is, the more I fall in love with her, because that's one of the things I loved about her from the beginning, is like that she embraced her weird. And Janine reminded me, or shared, I didn't know, uh, uh, told me that weird in Gaelic means magic.
Mhm.
So I love or did you say it's yeah, that's
Magical. It can be magical
magical.
as well. We're
Yeah,
in
yeah.
San
Do you
Diego.
know the Gaelic word, how you pronounce it?
No.
I'll have to find that out.
Yeah.
This is a really random aside, but I took being an actor, and I took a modern Irish language class
Mhm.
in college at NYU, and I thought I'd get to learn like the Irish world and how it sounds to have an Irish accent. It was Gaelic. I had to
Nice.
read, write, speak Gaelic. It was like learning Hebrew or Russian or something. I mean, for a boy from Tennessee, my brain was like, huh? Consonants together. But anyway, so that was really, I love, there's a magical and mystical energy to that culture. So that we're embracing weird. Yes. Um, about money and this mindset, because I thought I was weird that, like money used to scare me.
Mhm.
I was taught that people with money were evil, that people who followed their hearts didn't take jobs with money, that made money. They sacrifice, like martyr ourselves for money so that we could like and that didn't work for me either. So I found myself really, really depressed, stressed, alone, isolated, and still like finding these old recurring thoughts about my value related to my bank account, or like how much flow is coming in despite all the magic and seeds that I continue to plant. Like my brain really tells me that um, sometimes like don't know what to do or don't know where to go. And I'm just, by being here in your presence, reminded that we don't have to do it alone. In fact, maybe doing it alone is not actually optimal. Um, it's suboptimal, it turns out. So I really heard you say like, oh, I don't do it alone, even I have team. So are there times in your life where well, first of all, is there anything you want to speak to? I just dropped a lot out there, but
I know. And I love this because I think back to my mentor, Andre Genovese, who reminds me specifically like, I'm in this business for myself. I never have to do it by myself. And even when I think
mm,
about John Maxwell, who had this beautiful conversation with just like a smaller group of all of us. And I know he's used it multiple times of there is no such thing as a self-made millionaire. And as we talk about wealth more than anything, I also wanted to point out, because you had said something I think a lot of people relate to in their relationship with money. Even if
mm,
they don't say it, they have this relationship. And again, I think of Andre when he says the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Our relationships are so important energetically, more than sometimes physically and mentally, emotionally, like spiritually. Like, who are you connected with when you are able to say anything that is in a relationship with you is evil? Like, how often could you say that to your wife? Like, my wife is evil, and still be in a relationship that works or is even healthy. And knowing that we're in this paradigm right now that a lot of people are still that money is essential, and then they're told that they're not essential. It literally creates so
mm,
much barrier with us being able to love value. Because my biggest definition, and then I'll give it back to you, Ben, is money more than anything of being a conscious currency is literally our value. People are able to say that this bottle of water is worth $1 versus a $16 value. And depending on where you are or your state of value, both of them get bought. And so I wanted to thank you for letting me unpack that for a second. Yeah.
yeah. So when I heard you say that money is literally our value,
Mm-hmm. I mean, granted, it's semantic. So for
yeah.
me, that is what it is. It may not be the occurrence for others, although that is what I play with. I believe money is value.
Mm. Thank you for saying that. That resonates here. I one of the ways I started to shift my relationship to money, because even as when I had the success with Dell computers, I was making six figures. I was paying off. I mean, NYU is like one of the most expensive schools in the country, and I was like all on loans, and I managed to pay off some of it. But the thing that started to happen is as soon as it was over, I had spent, so it was gone. Next thing I knew, I went from having six figures in my bank account to having $10,000 of credit card debt. And I'd never had a credit card. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? And that's paralyzing debt that grows faster than wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, once debt snowballs, as I'm sure most of America or anyone listening right now may understand, it can be really, really frustrating and challenging, and feel like we're alone. And it was in sometime I just asked for help, and somebody said, go to the Actors Fund. I'm like, the Actors Fund? And it turns out it's a nonprofit organization inside of Times Square in the Actors Equity Building. They have their own banking there. You can use ATMs for free anywhere in McDonald's across the country if you're with them, the Actors Credit Union. But more than anything, they also provide free education for any artist, anyone who identifies as an artist. So you don't have to be an actor. And I had these wealth management classes where we talked about how to manage wealth that is constantly changing. If you're an independent contractor, sometimes a creative or an artist who lives based on, I have so many fluctuating incomes that can be tricky to track. But the thing that I really started to uncover was that it was all related to my self-esteem. How I valued myself. Like, I believed in myself, yes, but I had this like existential crisis, this part of me that I did not love, that I did not embrace, that scared me, that I abused. Mentally, emotionally, with substances, with the way I talked to myself. And I realized, I think it was even in a coaching program too, where someone said, yeah, first of all, you need double your prices. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. No one's going to pay that, especially not an actor. And my first client, I went from like making $500 a month to making $1,500 a month as a coach. And my first client was an actor. And he said yes to $4,500 for 3 months. And someone told me to charge that. And I thought that was unbelievably ridiculous. And actually, with the value he ended up getting from it, that number it could have been twice as much. But it was still like I was making up something about him based on me and my value. So even when I have had less money in my bank account, I've also made that mean something about my value. So I'm really curious how we untangle ourselves from those moments when we may be in a kind of debt situation that feels like it is that we're not valuable. So how do we, like, it's like the cart before the horse, like which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Like, how do we value ourselves? How do we get out of that place?
Well, and it's interesting because in that, I don't always know the answer, because just like finances, it isn't one size fits all. Although one person I always listen to, specifically when I'm thinking about first the foundation of just where your money is, Warren Buffett. He has this beautiful phrase that a lot of times people use, but they don't always fully think about it. And again, I'm going to rewrite it, at least in the words that I see. He talks about 2 rules of investing. First rule is don't lose money. And the second rule is never forget rule number 1. And so when I think about that, the first rule of investing, again, more than what it looks like for money, realize that there's time. And most people are always investing their time to try to make money. And so if you go back to what Warren had said, he says, rule number 1, don't lose value. And then the next rule is don't forget rule number 1, because to the other point you had brought up earlier, when people do think about making this money and making those riches, I want more people to understand how to make themselves wealthy and have themselves feel enriched. Because to your point too, when I think about now, I mean, I'm someone who lives in the A Mills out here in Minneapolis, and to think I even got in here versus some people who have been like 3 years on a waiting list. Like,
wait, you live in the what? What is that you said?
A Mill Lofts. It's out here. It's right on the Mississippi River. It's like iconic because we're in like the old Pillsbury like building, and literally the main wall that I look at for I don't even know the name of it. I feel so awkward. The US Bank state. Oh, next to the Guthrie. Like, I see that every morning.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and it's beautiful because I'm like, this is the life I chose to live. And I'm literally among so many individuals that have been told that they need to starve in order to be anything of a true artist. And like you had said, like, oh, people who take jobs that have so much money are not really into it. People call them a sellout, versus people who are starving for their art to really make a difference. And the biggest thing that I want people to recognize is, if there's a feeling of you starving, realize you're hungry for something more than what this physical world is having to sometimes really refrain into thinking. And so when you were saying, how do we get people into that space? I feel like the first thing is you need to find where you have an energy leak. And again, money, money might be multiple things. Although if you are telling yourself you don't have enough or that you'll never make it, like energetically, like that is what you are putting out. And so I feel like the first thing, like you used a beautiful example, Ben, like you create your level of value. And even with your first client, like that's your new bar. And so I feel like sometimes people are so in their world of this is how it always needs to be, or that's the craziest phrase, like this is the way it's always been done. And so they don't allow themselves to see that this world is limitless. And so if we can really have people first rewrite the way they speak about their value and rewrite the way they allow others around them to operate, we're going to see people not in that lack anymore, Ben. And granted, as of right now, it's just an idea. Although the more I play with individuals who really have been in a space of, I don't lack, I have so much. And maybe they're not the one percenters, the rich, the wealthy, the affluent, anyone making $500,000 or more, but they're learning how to play the games. And so one of the things that I love more than what we've created here in a very capitalistic country is that there are three main principles anyone can really practice to always elevate themselves to another level of excellence, not just with an income, but the way they invest their time first, and then they watch their value or money expand. And the first thing, like you were mentioning, rate of return. If people know that money is going to grow and it's not necessarily always how much you're saving, but where you're saving, you can have an influence, or I don't even know what the word is that I was going to say there. You can have a huge impact on how much you watch your money go from just a small amount into an amount that actually makes a huge difference for you, your loved ones, your family, your community. The other thing is risk management. And again, there are so many books that can talk about this, but more than anything, if you're in the conversations and the communities that show you where risk is versus where there are areas of opportunity, you'll start seeing how much of these conversations, and again, I think of Andre, a lot of these secrets are hidden in books. Like they say, if you want a secret, you should hide it. And one of the biggest ones I'll put out there, Napoleon Hill wrote a great one, Think and Grow Rich. And the last area that I love, and I say love because I realize that there is a lot in what people have given control to, and then they feel they have no control over, is taxes. Because however it's working right now, it is definitely going to shift. I promise you in these next couple of years. And if we're in a mindset that realizes what it's supposed to be, everything that it's not right now is going to dissolve. And I say that wholeheartedly because I realize as I'm working more in the world of financial education, people desire to be free. But if you're enslaving your thoughts of what your opportunities are, no one can help you. You cannot wake those pretending to sleep. And so if you really are someone who wants to hit snooze, be okay with it. But allow yourself, if you feel that stirring, start having the conversations. Because like you had said, Ben, until you start practicing, the performance will always just be at play. And this is the time and the season. Season 3, like we keep going with it. At least with dude, you're getting well, because we're realizing this is the time to play full out. So yeah, that's how we're gonna make the shift.
That is hot. I'm capturing some of what you're saying. And I want to make sure if there's anyone that's listening here, well, of course you're listening. Write down what you're getting from this. Like, put it in the comments. If you haven't subscribed, do that, because that's what's going to move this forward, is actually taking the action. And I also want to really encourage you to reach out to Janine. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, like, damn, I gotta talk to Janine more often. If you're having that thought, like, and you're worried about doing any of this alone, I'll remind you what she said at the very beginning, and that's that, like, we don't have to, and also it could be suboptimal. Thank you for saying taxes, Janine. Jumping back in here, I actually learned to do, I got so empowered in my early 20s. I love money and math. Even though it scared the shit out of me, something about the math part's good. I like accounting. So somewhere, one of my best friends, who was also like, we would go overspend and over drink together. And an early recovery for me, something happened for her, and she decided she was going to become a CPA. And she's like covered in tattoos, and she's like funky, and like, and she, like, I saw, like, oh, I had a definition of what a CPA should look like. And here's my best friend becoming one. And she was like, oh, dude, I'm not going to do your, well, she was like, yeah, I'll do your taxes for you, but I'm going to teach you how to do it as I do it. So we did it on TurboTax. And from then on, it worked really well. But then I started making more money, and I know that I can get flagged as an independent contractor. I make very little on paper because of the amount of write-offs that are necessary for me in that. And I also teach people how to write off expenses. I think that is something that is your birthright as a citizen. When you're paying taxes, it is so important to look and talk about like how to categorize. And now thanks to that program at the Actors Fund, I have an app called Wallet, and I track every single penny that I spend and every single penny that I earn, so that if I'm ever wondering where it's going or what's happening with my money or where I'm spending my energy, it's like right there. It's really clear. And then I stopped doing my taxes for the last 3 years. I couldn't do it. I mean, I could, but like it became this running joke between my wife and I is like, yeah, this week we're going to sit down and do our taxes. And we really believed it. And like 2 years later, I realized we had been having the same conversation and neither of us had done our taxes. So obviously the thing I can do is to do my taxes. I can't do hers for her. We're married, filing separately. And I still couldn't do it. I sat down and something told me, Ben, ask for help. And I was like, oh, yeah, you have that intuitive healer friend, Daniel, who's been talking about his accountant, who's amazing. Like, why don't you call her? So I did. Her name's Ruth Beltran. She's in New York. Turns out she was an accountant and a healer. And she was like, yeah, sometimes I find when people haven't, done their tax in a while, like maybe there's, a grief or a death in the family, or they've been through I think she said some kind of emotional thing. Sometimes it can be connected to emotions. And I was like, oh yeah, my dad died like 2 years ago. Like, hello, I've just like been grieving, and no wonder I'm avoiding these things. And God bless her that she was just able to, like, she's like, I got you. I'm going to walk you through it. Um, and all 3 years my taxes are done now, and I'm already able to invest in wealth, and I'm working on strategy quests thanks to David Rush, like having passive income, which I've even learned is actually active income. I believe I learned that from you, that nothing's actually passive, that it's actually actively working for us. So that was kind of my like long story short around taxes. When you say taxes, what's there for me was like this heavy weight of 3 years. And now I can like tell everyone and like celebrate with you too, Janine, that like I did it. I'm on the other side. And it's only because I asked for help.
Thank you.
And I'm someone who preaches ask for help, but it doesn't always occur to me to ask for help. Like that's not my first thought always. So thank you for reminding us to ask for help and receiving everyone and anyone who is ready to be in that space and have that conversation. So where do you find the people who come to you? Like, what is the number one is there something like a pattern you notice that they're dealing with where they like have been avoiding this, or they're finally ready to take it on? Like, do you notice, I mentioned for me, like it could be something emotional or like, I don't know. So I just avoid, but do you notice any kind of patterns that shows up for humans today around money, that like the challenges that you deal with regularly with clients?
Yeah. And honestly, I think most industries do. It's people who are desiring to have like a higher purpose. And again, it almost has nothing to do with the money, because what I feel like a lot of times, and I think about my agency in general, like in Lions Wealth Builders, one of the biggest thing we bring is people who want to have that dream fulfilled. And a lot of people, like you were sharing too, like I feel like there's so many people in this world who want to understand what the purpose is. And I forget exactly what the phrase is. It's like there's forget how they say it. It's like the 2 days in your life, like the day you're born and the day you find out why. And I'm not saying it always happens, but I feel like when people step into wanting to understand their money, it's also at that moment they want to really discover, why are they doing this? That's actually what happened to me. I think about September 11th, 2018, when I was walking around doing my Tuesday field trading, and I was doing my safety walk with my team, and I was having this hollow feeling. I kept asking, like, who am I living my life for? And again, that was 2018. It wasn't until 2021 I even discovered that I wanted to educate people on fulfilling that. But a lot of what I think people have in common when they come to me is they have all these pieces that they want to put in play, and they just don't know when to start or when it'll be done. And so I walk them. I mean, granted, it's a tool I call the financial needs analysis. And what it does is it really straightens your road from like what you want to accomplish 1 to 3 years, 3 to 5, like 5+. And then from that, it has people putting blocks. And I take this quote from Ram Dass all the time, like, we are here to walk each other home. And we're not all, most of the people who walk on my path, it's just to cross and then continue. But I love that I've been put in this opportunity to sometimes watch people who want to walk with me. Because since my agency 3 years ago, I now have people who've introduced me to an app called Keeper, which again, I love it because I feel like it's like an AI. Sometimes
What's the app? I missed it. What's it called?
Keeper.
Okay.
Yeah, right after like I'll swipe my card, or I'll like have done like a business trip or something, like, ooh, is this flight for pleasure? And like, so it'll let you know, because to your point too, Ben, when I think about taxes, more than, again, the way we do anything is the way we do everything. Your example of you having that relationship with like processing your father and then realizing that some of these things were following back. It's not that you were avoiding it. I'm grateful someone had that conversation, that opportunity to open it, because I feel like very often when people have conditioned themselves to think about taxes too, it's almost like, oh, I have to pay extra. And honestly, if you have to pay extra, you are probably an entrepreneur, because most people actually get a tax rebate because they've paid too much. And so it's beautiful, because I feel like as these conversations keep opening up, I now have someone in my agency who does my taxes for me, because that was one of her passions. And she teaches this in the 101 class about budgeting. And then there's other people who do nonprofits. And so I feel like when people come to me, it starts out with, hey, Janine, I was told you can help my finances. And then we find out more than helping with your fiscal body, it helps all other bodies, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and more than anything, the mental body. Because I feel like you were sharing, there are a lot of people who get depressed when they look at money. And I think it's because there's been such a conditioning that has us feel we are less value than the paper and coins we put in our pocket. And it's time to rewrite that. And so I'm grateful when anyone comes in my life, because I realize I might just have 1 or 2 conversations, but I promise you'll leave feeling better and more transformed in what you are creating in this world than you did before you found out about Janine Ayana Watkins.
Woo! Okay. I got your invitation. I accept. I hope everyone else listening accepts. I've put Janine's contact information in here for Lions Wealth Builders, and her email, JanineAyanaWatkins@gmail.com. So if you haven't reached out to her, please do. If you haven't clicked subscribe on this show, please do. If there's someone who could use this message and solution, please share it with them. We all could use a little extra help. And sometimes we don't know it till someone's like, hey, I thought of you when I heard this. I'm learning a lot, and I can't wait to talk to you more about this, Janine. I see a clear path and opportunity to allow myself to be supported in conversation with you and Lions Wealth Builders. So for anyone who is interested in pursuing that, or learning more about this, like, what's the best way to get involved? You mentioned there's some, and I heard through the grapevine too, that there's some programming that people, or workshops, or some content that's even available for free. So how can we get involved? Where do we start?
First, reach out to me, because again, finances aren't one size fits all. And so my agency is nationwide. In fact, we even have some members out in Canada. So for North America, we've got your back, and it is expanding. It is literally going to be a world of financial group members who are coming together. And we do classes around $1 million babies. We do like women empowerment. We do conversations around tax-free retirement. And all of it again is complementary because my agency is on the mission.
What?
No families get left behind. Yeah. And in
Wow.
most of the conversations that we have is knowledge is power and it should always be free. And so if there's any point after you gain the knowledge that we can again walk you home, that is when we'll talk about the agency. But first and foremost, we want everyone to have what's going to have them become financially independent. And that is completely complementary.
Woo.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
You're
This
welcome.
has been so valuable in more ways than one. Pun intended. Man, woman, people, dudes, thank you. Yeah, I'm really grateful. God bless you. And I want to acknowledge your full-blown self-expression that has you show up, that has you be a demand for this in life, that has you speak this forward, that is powerful, that has you settled and proud and confident and esteemed in who you are and what you do for the world. To hear you deliver in the way you did about Janine Ayana Watkins there at the end, I'm like, oh hell yeah, she's in her purpose, she's aligned. And that is magnetic. That's what I believe we are all looking for, to be called for, to find our purpose. And if there's one thing that I've gotten to see about Janine, about you, Janine, and talking to other people, what I see about Janine is like surrounding yourself with powerful, inspirational, beautiful, light individuals of depth and massive expansion and humility and humbleness, and that's what I see a lot in you too. So thank you for being you and for sharing your time so generously with us here in Dude Nation.
Received and reciprocated, Ben Curtis.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, dudes. Well, it's that time of the episode where we are going to sign off so that we can go apply this to our lives. So go take action, do something with this conversation. Don't just sit there, do something about it and take an action. Reach out to Janine, reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with Janine if you want. Do something, have a conversation with your partner, with your loved ones. Like, hey, I heard about this. I want to talk about this in my life. Surround some accountability around it. Book a phone call, like do something. So, and if nothing else, just put the oxygen mask on yourself first. That's a great way to start your day. And to love the world is to love you. So thank you, Janine, for your love. And thank you everyone for listening, and have a beautiful day.